Hey, stepmamas, welcome to the Stepmom Unfiltered podcast. This is your go to space for unapologetic, unfiltered conversations about the roller coaster ride of stepmotherhood. We're your hosts. I'm Adrienne.
And I'm Amelia. We understand that being a stepmom is like walking a tightrope in stilettos. So we're here to help you embrace the messiness, laugh through the craziness, and find strength in our shared experiences.
This podcast is more than just a series of episodes, it's a community for stepmoms to be real, raw, and unfiltered. Buckle up because we're about to embark on a journey of candid conversations, taboo topics, and expert insights.
This is the Stepmom Unfiltered podcast, your sanctuary for real talk and real solutions.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Stepmom Unfiltered podcast. How are you, Amelia?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Another happy Thursday.
Yes, I'm excited. We're
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I know we have had some great conversations coming our way, which is what prompted today's conversation. We had some great
Yeah.
questions from clients and others reaching out. So I know we want to talk about stepmoms having more control than they think they have. Um, and I think this is common to feel out of control and feel like you have no say. And I think the reality is that they have a lot more say than they realize they have. And it's about figuring out what that relationship with your partner looks like and defining your role so that you understand where the rules of the road are.
Yeah, I that's exactly it. Defining your role, right? And I had a conversation with someone last week about this because they kind of said to me, well, what does that even mean? Like, define my role how? Um, and gave me a little backstory. And, in short, defining your role, like, means, what will you be involved in and what won't you? What will be part of your responsibilities and what won't be, based on what do you want that to look like? And also what are your partner's expectations? Um,
Uh, I was
you
thinking
know,
about our conversation around that last week. I was thinking more about it. And I think what finally hit me was like, I was like, why is it so foreign for people to think about defining their role? And I think it's because as a mom or as a dad, you
yes,
wouldn't have to define your role. It is
right.
defined, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody understands it, whether it's family, friends, society in general, the education system. But when it comes to a step parent, especially a stepmom who tends to take on more of the motherly roles within a home, um, I think it's more vague and people don't understand. And then there's kind of two sides of the coin of the narrative of the evil stepmom that, all the
Right.
Disney movies like to portray. Um,
Hmm.
and there's always that you're overstepping or you're not doing enough. And it's very conflicting.
And I think that's it, right? We hear as stepmoms so much that evil narrative, right? Like, oh, stepmoms are terrible, stepmoms ruin families, stepmoms this, stepmoms that, they don't treat their children right. And then on the flip side, you know, you've got this other narrative saying, stepmoms that aren't 100% involved and stepmoms that can't sit down and have Sunday dinner with everybody, aren't are standing up to the test or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And
Right.
so like
Yeah.
it's super confusing, especially when you have your own unique conflicts happening within this dynamic and you're like, well, wait a minute, like I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. Some people are telling me that I need to step up and I need to be really involved, and other people are telling me, stay in your lane. Don't, love them like your own, but don't actually love them like your own. Like,
Right.
don't actually care about them too much or as much as their mom, because, oh my word, that would just be terrible. Right. So,
Right.
like, that's super, I'm being sarcastic, by the way. Um, so it's super confusing, especially for a new stepmom and maybe someone who hasn't been involved in step families to be like, okay, wait a minute. I actually have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Like, yeah, what is okay and what is not. And that's kind of what this conversation that I had with this person was about, was like, she just had no idea.
Right.
Uh,
Well, and do you go to the extracurricular activities? Do you not? What role do you play in those? Are you responsible when it's that your child's turn or your stepdaughter's turn for a snack night? Do you go to the parent teacher conferences? Are you involved
Right.
in helping with homework? I mean, there's a million questions to help define
Right.
that role. And I think really it starts with defining it between you and your partner because it's your house, your rules. You have to be on the same page with your partner first and foremost
Yeah.
before you can worry about what bio mom thinks or what bio dad thinks or what their 2 cents on how you should be
Right.
involved in their child's life or not. They don't really get to control that.
Yeah, and I think that right there is what had me fired up during this conversation that I had was because one of the things the stepmom, had said to me was, I want to be involved in, going to a school concert or whatever, an extracurricular, but the mom says like that I'm not allowed. Um, and for me, like in my opinion, it's like, well, wait a minute. Why does she get to decide what you're doing? Like, why does she get to decide if you get to sit on the sideline of a soccer field or, or
Well,
sit
and
in
I
the back row of a Christmas concert? Like, who she, unfortunately, the reality is when you separate or divorce, you don't get to control what your ex-partner and their new partner do. Like you
That's right.
just don't. You just don't.
Well, and I
Now,
think that's the message that's so critical, right? Like it's up to you and your partner and what you do in your home on your time. And
right.
I I feel like we can't say that enough or loud enough because
Mhm.
so often we're hearing, but bio mom doesn't want me to, or bio dad doesn't want me to. Well,
Right.
they don't get a say. They
Yeah,
don't
they
get a
don't
say.
they don't get to decide, just like you don't get to decide who they bring to the Christmas concert or who they bring to the soccer field or whatever.
That's right.
That's their business. And does this mean go out of your way to like be a nuisance to your
No.
ex? Of course not. But what it does mean is that if you're in a relationship with someone and it's been a good amount of time, um and that person expresses that like, yes, I'd love to come to the child's you know sports event or whatever, I'd love to cheer them on and show them my support and whatever, then I see no issue with that. Do
Right.
you need to go and sit with the ex? Of course not. If you can, I think that's wonderful, absolutely, go right ahead. But if you can't, then you sit somewhere else. It doesn't need to be a big ordeal.
Right.
um And yeah, you and your partner get to decide that, nobody else.
Well, and this might be the unpopular opinion, but I can even remember a client that I worked with that um bio dad couldn't go to an award ceremony at school and stepmom could. And
Mhm.
so she did. And bio mom was
Yeah.
furious and angry. And it's like, how can anybody be upset that the more people are pouring into your child and loving them and supporting them and cheering them on? In what world does that even make
Mhm.
sense?
Well, I think what it is it has nothing to do with who's pouring into the child and who's
That's right.
supporting them. It has to do with who you are, like what you
That's right.
represent, right? And you represent everything as a stepmom, you represent everything that they had hoped to have and now they don't.
Right.
Nobody has a child, gets married, all the things, to be like, I can't wait in 5 years for this just to all dissolve and for me to hit rock bottom and go through hell and have to parent with a person that I don't really like all that much anymore. And maybe with another person who is a total stranger to me and they're going to have, put their 2 cents in. Nobody thinks like that,
Well, and we
right?
certainly don't go into motherhood thinking we're going to have to share our
Share,
children with
of course
anybody
not.
else. So
And
I
so like it's hard, that is hard. Like
right.
I'm not trying to poke fun at people. Like it is, that is difficult. That's a difficult pill to swallow. But like I think in that instance, it has nothing to do with the person being there. It has to do
Right.
with the hurt and the pain that that bio mom hadn't yet been able to work through.
That's
And
right.
that's so much of what all of this is working through all of it. Like it's hard. It's not easy work.
No, and it starts
Right.
with each individual person. It starts with ourself and the work that we have to do on ourself, and that's the hard part, right? That's why relationships are complicated because you can
Yeah.
only control you and work
Right.
on you, and you can't do
Mhm.
anything about the other person, whether that's your partner or an ex or a co-parent or any other relationship. So it gets messy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this trickles not only into kids, sports and things like that, but yeah, within your home, right? Like, well, bio mom doesn't want me to do whatever, bath the child or put the child to bed or be at home with the child while they're sleeping. Um, and again, the question is, have you had the conversation with your partner about the expectations? Um,
Right. And
you
what's in the
know,
best interest of the child when these decisions are made, right? I'm not
right.
advocating for anybody to go out and intentionally work against the
Of
ex
course not.
or
Absolutely not. But like in our case, for instance, the girls were 2 when we got together on bath nights. I tossed them both in the tub
right,
because that would make no sense to just be like, I'm going to bath this one and then you can bath that one. Like they loved being together and they're siblings and,
of
you know,
course.
so bath them together. Was it an issue? No. Um, but maybe for some people that could be an issue, right?
Well, and like in
They
my
might make issue
case,
of it.
I mean, part of it in our case was just our natural roles and how we decided to co-parent within our own home, right? I mean,
Right.
I was the
Hmm.
one sitting with the kids doing homework most of the time, or, I came home and picked the kids up from the business that we had and would come home and do homework and dinner and extracurricular activities while my husband was at the business in the evening hours. And we had
Right.
different schedules and things. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. And I think the flip side of this is hopefully if you are a bio mom, you're wanting to see the best in the stepmom who might be doing those things and fulfilling that role on, on dad's parenting time, and vice versa.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of hit me a while ago was when it comes to, like bio mom doesn't like stepmom and, whatever that whole narrative that gets thrown out there. And one of the things that hit me one time was like, when you end your relationship, it usually isn't on good terms, right? You're kind of feeling a little
Right.
hostile towards that person. And generally speaking, throughout the separation divorce process, things are usually a little tense. They're not great. Um, and so when someone has a new partner come into their life, the ex is already looking at their ex like, well, he's a moron, right? He's an idiot. And then now here comes, his clown of a girlfriend. So she's an idiot too. Like
Yeah.
you can see how someone would already just have this perception of someone, well, she must be an idiot if she likes him, right?
Right.
And so then automatically, we'll call it stepmom, you know, right away, stepmom's just a clown and can't be trusted and doesn't know anything. And right, without
Right.
even knowing who she is, right, or anything about her.
Or taking the
Um,
time to get to know her and have those conversations.
right. And vice versa. Like it goes for men too. Like women
Right.
can look at a stepdad and be like, well, he's an idiot, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think that that's part of it. And so I think when possible, I know it's not always possible, but getting to know that step parents, right? Getting to know who are they? Like who are you? What are
Yeah.
you
What are their
about? What's your family about? Like just, get to
exactly.
know one another so that you can understand each other better. Um,
Well, and I
yeah,
think it's hard to do that, right? It's hard to admit that at some point in time, you saw something in your ex that you valued, or you wouldn't have been
right.
together in the first place, right? And yes, relationships go
Yeah.
south and things happen and people
Hmm.
change and all of those aspects. But
Hmm.
I think in the majority of situations, if we can go back to healing ourselves and
Yeah.
all of those wounds and traumas and things that you may have been through in life that may or may not have been based on the relationship, some are,
Hmm.
some not.
Hmm.
If you start there, then you're going to have a more willingness to be open to getting to know somebody new in your ex's life or in your child's life. And, but you can't do that well if you haven't worked on yourself first.
Yeah. And I mean, talking from experience, I know it's not easy. And I know, I think I've talked about this on an episode before, like, thinking like this is what I want. I want a relationship with the ex. I want to do the things and trying, but then realizing later on, like, you know what, I hadn't healed enough of me,
Right.
from my past and all the things to be able to have that solid relationship with her. I was just not ready for that. Um,
Yeah, and
but yeah, I think
that is hard, right? I mean, if one
mhm,
person's ready and the other's not, it still might not work. And
right.
it's really hard to get that timing perfectly aligned where both people are healed or doing the work to heal. I mean, are we
Yeah,
ever really healed? Let's be
I
honest,
don't
right?
think
I mean, I
so.
feel like it's a lifetime worth of journeys here. So,
Absolutely is. And I think too, it's important to note that a lot of times these relationships with our partners, exes can just kind of ebb and flow. And I think that that's normal, even in life. Our relationships with people, with friends, with families, they ebb and flow, right?
yeah.
Um, and so this is no different. But at the end of the day, what's best for the child. And I know we hear that so much, but like, really that is what it's all about, and being able to parent in a way that benefits the child the most, right? So that they can turn into the best person they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think for those listening, the key highlights here, you have more control than you think you do as a stepmom. And it really
Mhm.
starts with conversations with your partner in defining what your role is and where those boundaries lie so that you're honoring each other and your relationship, as well as
Mhm.
honoring what's in the best interest of the kids.
Right. Yeah. Um, and before we go, we do have a blog on the website. I think we can link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Um, Also, just kind of outlining, because we didn't really get to it today, but outlining the importance of a parenting plan. And just to quickly talk about that, a lot of people, when they first separate and everything, oh, it's fine. We don't need to define this, the child will be with this person every other year and this person every other year, and we're going to do this. And then a few years in, maybe somebody has a new partner in their life, and all of a sudden someone starts to feel a little jealous or uneasy. And then suddenly those plans that you had are out the window,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And so going into a separation, divorce, whatever, and mapping all that out really is going to save down the road a few years later going, well, wait a minute, but you said that, child would always be with me on Christmas Eve, or do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
Or we're
absolutely.
always going to do birthdays together. Like saying that, and then a few years in being like, actually, that's not going to work, right? So really just defining all of those little details helps everybody.
Well, and defining them when things are good is helpful because the plan
Yes.
is not for when things are good and you're on good terms. The
Right.
plan
That's
is for
it.
when you disagree to go back and say, well, here's what we follow in writing. And
Right.
because we can't agree and we can't mutually agree, we're going to follow this. When we can mutually agree again, we can both modify it. I think
Yeah.
the other thing about a parenting plan is it doesn't have to be done once and set in stone,
Right.
right? That can change as the kids' ages change and
Of
as there's
course.
different
Yeah.
needs and milestones, right? Like what you
Mhm.
plan for a 2 and 5-year-old is going to be
Right.
completely different than what you would plan for middle school age children or
Of
high school
course.
age
Yeah.
children. And being willing to be
Yeah.
flexible in your thoughts around how you handle holidays and what holidays are
Mhm.
important. I mean, yeah, we probably have other episodes on this or a blog on it too, but the parenting plan is not for when things are going well. So
Yes,
if
that
things are
is,
going
yeah.
well and you think you don't need it, think
You
again,
need
build the
it.
plan and have it as your backup.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. 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 Well, you can find us at theartofblendedchaos.com. You can also connect with us on Instagram at the Art of Blended Chaos, and we'll be back next week.
A quick disclaimer to cover our asses. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on today's episode are the speaker's own, so if you didn't like them, why didn't you turn this off sooner?
The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. If you need support with a specific topic, you can do so by booking a one-on-one coaching call through our website, theartofblendedchaos.com. This podcast is not intended to replace professional, legal, or medical advice. You seriously didn't think we were lawyers or doctors, did you?